Okay, Steve Eiss is here with us, Vice President for Construction and Real Estate Development with Northern Arizona Healthcare. Steve, welcome to the program. Big issue.
Yeah.
Agreed. This one's interesting. We're going to talk about medical care, medical service throughout Northern Arizona. It's a very Flagstaff heavy issue because the people of Flagstaff are voting on whether or not to rezone a large chunk of property. I mean, what is this thing, like 98, almost 100 acres?
Yeah, the total property that NAH owns just north of Fort Tuthill County Park is almost 180 acres.
Okay.
The phase one portion of it that is going to the election in November is only about 55 acres out of the property. And inside that 55 acres is a replacement hospital for the existing Flagstaff Medical Center, a large outpatient building, and a parking garage. So only the healthcare portion of our proposed health and wellness village, but there'll be a phase two in the future.
Okay, so citizens of Flagstaff are voting on this, but this is a regional issue because this is a regional hospital. The existing hospital right now is just north of downtown. I mean, it's really in an area that the area's developed kind of all around it over the years, and pretty congested area. But you guys service Northern Arizona Healthcare Services, and I see other facilities. There's one down in Camp Verde, for example. I mean, did you guys take over the Cottonwood one too?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So NAH owns and operates Flagstaff Medical Center, Verde Valley Medical Center down in Cottonwood, Sedona Medical Center, and also the large medical office building in Camp Verde that you were referring to.
I went there once because I stepped on a rusty nail, and they did a great job.
Beautiful building.
I didn't get lockjaw or anything, so I figured I'd go in because you never remember when you got the last tetanus shot, right?
True.
Okay, so my point being, though, this is not just a Flagstaff issue. This medical facility in Flagstaff services a huge area. What'd you say, 800?
Yeah,
800,000?
We serve a patient population of approximately 800,000 people.
Okay.
And I think a few key things to think of. One, we're in an area that's projected to grow from a population demand perspective. So when we look at the new hospital and development in general, we look at a brand new hospital that we want to be able to serve the entire region for the next 50 years. So it's not just a today problem. It's what are we going to do for generations to come as the population continues to grow in Northern Arizona. So right now, Flagstaff Medical Center, so this isn't NAH numbers, this is just Flagstaff Medical Center, 61% of our patients come from outside of Flagstaff proper right now. We're the only level 1 trauma center north of Phoenix in the entire state of Arizona.
What does that mean?
So level 1 trauma center is the highest level designation of emergency department trauma center.
So not the nail in the foot. I took the chainsaw when I'm cutting wood and I hacked my leg.
Correct.
Something like that, or a gunshot wound.
Yeah, so there are 12 level 1 trauma centers in the state of Arizona. 10 of them are in Phoenix. One of them is in Tucson, and one of them is Flagstaff Medical Center. So we are the kind of catch-all trauma center for the entire region of Northern Arizona. So almost 2/3 of our patients come from outside of Flagstaff proper. A third of our patients come from tribal lands all around Northern Arizona. So we operate not as a community hospital, which is what Flagstaff Medical Center started out as. And I think from a location perspective, where it is just north of downtown was the perfect location for a community hospital to serve Flagstaff. But as the region's grown and as Flagstaff Medical Center has grown into what it really serves, which is a much more higher acuity patient care level, complex cardiac work, neuro work, level 1 trauma center, it really does serve the entire region, and the majority of our patients come from outside of Flagstaff.
Okay, so somebody is a bad car wreck up in Page?
Yes.
They're sending a chopper up?
Correct.
Or they're bringing a chopper down, or if there's maybe even Lake Havasu. I mean, they may have some other options. Is it like that decision point is made? Where's the quickest path to get to, and flags on the radar?
It is. And Guardian Air, which is a helicopter EMS service here in Northern Arizona, is a company that's owned by NAH, so as is Guardian Ground. So we do have ownership of the ground and air EMS services for the region.
Okay. Let's stick with the existing hospital right now in north of downtown Flagstaff. What's wrong with it? I mean, to me, it looks like a traditional hospital, and you got that sky bridge there that looks nice and all that. And I've been in there multiple times for things over the years with the kids and the family, and you've done additions to it pretty recently. I thought,
yeah,
it looks pretty good to me. But I don't know nothing about hospitals. I mean, what, in your opinion, what's the problem?
First, I apprate you admitting that you don't know anything about
I don't know anything about a lot of things, but I do have a talk show, so we talk about it anyway.
Appreciate that. So there's, I hesitate to say there's anything wrong with it, right? Okay. It's a great hospital that provides great care and has done great things for this community for a very long time. It is, however, outdated in its care model, and it's outdated today, right now. And as a healthcare development professional and as healthcare leaders with my partners, we're constantly looking at what the future is for our population that we serve, which, as I said earlier, was the entire region. So what it has been is a community hospital that has grown and grown and grown. As to your point, they've done multiple additions. Those multiple additions haven't been done in a fashion to make it something that can outlast the test of time. So the Sky Bridge is a perfect example. When the campus became on both sides of Beaver, they connected it with a Sky Bridge that only connects on one floor. So we have some patient care on West Campus. We have some patient care on East Campus. I'll take the third floor of West Campus as a perfect example. We have patient rooms on the third floor of West Campus that are over 900 feet to get from a patient room over to most of our clinical services, like the emergency department, imaging, surgery, et cetera. Hospitals, from a design perspective, are typically built taller, not wider, and that's very purposeful. It's part of why we have a height waiver as part of our zoning proposal for the new campus, because good hospital design keeps support services as close as possible to each other down on the ground. So surgical services, emergency services, trauma services, imaging services, all next to each other and adjacent so they can work with each other. And then we take what's called the bed tower, which is the part of a hospital that patients are usually most interested in. It's the part you sleep in. It's where your rooms are. Mm-hmm. And we place it on top, and we use vertical circulation to get those patients up and down in a quick fashion to that.
What's that mean? Elevator?
Elevators,
okay,
yes.
All right.
Yeah. So,
vertical circulation.
Apologize if I get too technical.
Well, you're
so
in the building
feel free to stop me, right?
So wait, you're saying that you build up, or I missed that?
We plan on building up at our new campus.
You want to be higher.
This hospital has built out.
Okay.
And has continued to build out.
So because I was thinking of like big cities that have a hospital, and here's the question that's come up from a lot of people out there on this. It's like, well, you got the facility right there. Why don't you just utilize what you've got there and build it up higher? I mean, in New York City, if there's a hospital, you got to remodel it. You got to go up higher. There's no more land left. Why not just go up more and take what you got?
Yeah, so we can't build up on what we have, right? The structural system of the building that was built as it stands right now can't go up. So there is no just building on top of the building, right? So there is potential of an opportunity to build a much taller building on campus. But thinking through the logistics of doing that, it's going to be just take something down, put something taller in its place, take something down.
Okay, so you'd have to knock something existing down.
Yeah, so it would be it'd be extremely impactful to the care for the community. It'd be extremely impactful to patients and staff. We already are short parking on campus. We would have to basically remove almost all of our parking on campus as we went through all of those gyrations of trying to figure out how to do that. In addition, we would be bringing additional traffic volume to that downtown area. One of the things that I think doesn't get talked about very often is if we were to even endeavor into something like that, on top of it taking what I think would be a 10, 12, 13 year long project that would consistently have portions of our hospital out of use. We'd also be for a decade or more bringing hundreds, if not up to 1,000 craft workers to the site that also have to have a place to park and work. And so it's not, you're never going to hear me say it's impossible. It's impractical. It's not practical. It's not the right thing to do. Okay. It's not necessary. And it's not something that can be undertaken. And to go back to the earlier point of just already kind of downtown congestion, as patient volume increases because population increases, we're just going to continue to increase that density in an area that doesn't have the support network for that density to be increased, right? So the roads around it can't support really the traffic volume that's on there right now, and it's only going to become more and more congested. And eventually we're just going to lend ourselves to a situation where we're going to have to continue to grow. So
okay, what's interesting about this one is this is a property rights issue, because you own the property where you're at now. Now you own the property out
near Fort Hill.
Fort Hill, south of Flagstaff. Is that in the county? Did that have to get annexed in?
It is in Flagstaff.
That is. So what? There was no annex or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, it is Flagstaff.
Well, what's interesting about this one is normally it'd be like, okay, you're a nonprofit, but you're a private company. You're building this, so there you go. Is it zoned for the use? And I think that's where you've come into the public really opening this up and dissecting it. And all of a sudden, we were talking before we came on air, I want to see your business plan. Can I get your business plan and let me see all the stuff that you're going to do? And all these questions come up where really it is a zoning issue, but because you're changing the zoning, that gives the council, and the council voted for this, correct?
The council voted, in the second vote, voted unanimous 6-0 in support of it.
Okay, so one was missing.
Correct.
So you had, 6-0, 6 members at least of the 7 showing support for this thing to rezone it. And what was it zoned now? So let's switch to the proposed, what you're calling a health and wellness village south of Flagstaff. What's that zone now?
Most of the property is zoned estate residential.
Estate residential. Is that like larger lots, single
Correct.
family homes, I would imagine? Okay.
Yeah, but if you look at Flagstaff's 2030 regional plan, it was always, well, not always, but since the latest regional plan's been adopted, it was intended for a higher density of use. So what the original 2030 regional plan had was what's called a neighborhood activity center, stating that the city wanted it, A, it's slated for development at some point, and B, that the city wanted it to be something more dense. Granted, what we are proposing is more dense than a neighborhood regional activity center, which is why step 1 to our process was getting the neighborhood regional activity center rezoned to a regional activity center. That is actually already done. So now our regional plan shows that there is a regional activity center in that area, which does support.
Okay, so council agreed to this to change it to the highway commercial and public facilities zone, which is commercial activity.
Correct.
So I assume you could do a hospital, you could do a commercial strip mall. I mean, that's all falls within the purview of that zoning, I would imagine.
Yeah. So there's certain things that fall well under highway commercial. Certain things are have to be done under what's called a use permit. In our case, we would need the use permit. We also need the height waiver because we are asking for a building that is taller than what the city of Flagstaff allows. We've asked for 160 feet in height waiver, and that's
160 feet.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm thinking about Flagstaff, and the tallest building downtown, I think, is the old Bank of America building, that ugly building from the 70s. But then you got Purina. That's probably, we got the NAU buildings, but we have no jurisdiction over NAU. I think those are like 10 stories.
Correct. And
so what's 160 feet? 16 stories?
Well, no, 160 feet in a hospital is 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah. Hospitals have a very, so you
have a very high ceiling.
Part of the problem. We have higher ceilings.
And drop ceilings.
It's really what it's the interstitial space. It's the space between the ceiling and the floor above. Hospitals are very intensive use buildings.
Okay.
Specifically on the mechanical and electrical side of things. So our HVAC systems are much bigger.
Okay.
So our air conditioning systems, et cetera, from a code perspective, have to be much bigger than what you'd see in a traditional building. So while a traditional commercial building might be 10 or 11 feet floor to floor, we're 17 or 18 feet on the first and second floor.
So you're 7 stories hospital land, but most people, if they're used to residential towers or whatever, that is probably a 14 to 16 story building for like an apartment complex or something. It's 160 feet.
12 to 14,
okay.
I would say. Yeah,
so it would be the tallest building by far in Flagstaff.
Yes.
Okay. And the council gave a waiver on that?
They did.
Okay. So describe and we're talking with, let's get into the health and wellness village. And we're talking with Steve Eiss, who's the Vice President of Construction and Real Estate Development for Northern Arizona Healthcare. And the proposal is what you're calling a health and wellness village. Eventually 180, how many acres?
It's a little under 180, 178 acres.
Okay, little under 180 acres. Let me have you pull that mic just a little bit closer. There you go, good.
Sure.
So a little under 180 acres. And getting a rezone from the city council, but now it's on the ballot for folks at Flagstaff to decide if the rezone should go through, because a group went out there and they got signatures. I don't know how many, but they got signatures that says, hey, we're putting this on the ballot. Correct. Voters of Flagstaff have to now decide on this zoning issue. And you're number 20 in a large ballot, by the way. We'll get that in just a little bit. But walk me through what the new campus, what is a village wellness or health and wellness village look like? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, sure. So let me clarify one thing, and then I'll answer your question. The election in November, ballots coming out in October, is only for the healthcare portion of the health and wellness village. And what I mean by that is it is for the hospital, outpatient care center, and our wellness retreat. So all of the development around the hospital, that is the phase 2 component of the health and wellness village, which we'll touch on here in a second. So the retail, the residential, the other medical office building space, that's third-party development, not by NAH. None of that is part of what is being voted on in November. So what we are voting on in November is, does the city of Flagstaff and the region of Northern Arizona want a brand new modern hospital to serve the entire region of Northern Arizona?
And do they want to rezone that property for that?
For that, and only that.
Okay.
There is an entire second zoning approval process that has to happen for the health and wellness village.
Okay, so what we're talking about right now, just to clarify again, is the actual hospital and hospital-related services right there on those parcels. You do have intention of eventually doing a phase 2, which is more, it could be residential, commercial uses, things like that. You would have to go through a rezone. That's not zoned for that use right now. So
correct.
It would come
so
back.
There will be a whole phase 2 process. So if there is anyone telling you that vote no on Prop 480 because we don't want more commercial or we don't want more residential, which I couldn't understand why people wouldn't want that in our current housing climate. But if you're hearing that, that is not the case, right? The vote is very simple. It is a new hospital, outpatient care center, and parking garage, or not. That is what phase 1 is. So
you haven't decided on the parking garage yet, or
no, parking garage is part of the project.
That's part of it. Okay, so hospital, parking garage,
outpatient medical office building. That's it. So the remainder of the property, as we get into phase 2, is intended to be a health and wellness village. And what we intend to do at that property is a few things. Number one, there is a housing component to it. That was part of the change to a regional activity center. There's a certain density of housing that we have to achieve on the property. I think by code, it's something around 270 units that we have to provide. We have plans that we think we can provide about 325 new housing units to the property. In addition to that, we are proposing space for hotel, space for other medical office buildings for complementary medicine that NAH might have.
This is phase 2.
This is phase 2. Okay, correct.
Which is not on this again.
Not on this, correct. And then some health-focused retail restaurant, and then also some R&D space to try and be kind of an economic development generator, job generator for the region.
Okay, before I want to get into what what we're dealing with on the ballot here. I want to get into that in just a second and what the healthcare facility will look like. But let's just loop back to phase 2, because that is a question for people, because they're like, hey, if you do phase 1, people assume you're going to come back for phase 2, because that must be part of your business plan to do that. The question that I've had people pose to me and that I've seen in that huge pamphlet is, why are you getting into something that you're not into? Like, this isn't your core business. And this goes along with what I was saying earlier, that it's kind of a strange case because it's a zoning issue, but people are basically diving into your business plan at this point. So, but that's what's on people's mind as they're voting for this. So I'll ask you, why get into housing, commercial, restaurant, you name it, all that other stuff, when your core focus, I would imagine as a group, Northern Arizona Healthcare is healthcare.
Yeah. So great question. Fair question. And I'll say two main things. Number one, we're not getting into that business. None of the buildings or businesses around the hospital are currently intended to be NAH-owned buildings or businesses. So what we are trying to do is create a place where we can bring health-focused business and economic development to the region through third-party development. It is not intended to have NAH dollars used. So we'll take housing as an example.
Okay.
We are not putting our capital forward to build that housing. We are going to find a development partner to build housing on our property because we know that Flagstaff needs more access to housing. We need it as an employer. Every other employer in the city needs it as employers, and the community needs it. Some of the other things, a hotel, for instance, is a very common thing to see as a complementary use to a large-scale regional medical center. We have a lot of patients who come in from out of town. They bring family with them. It's great to have a place to stay right on campus so that they can have ease of access to their loved ones. Some of the other components of it is land that we hope to make shovel ready for businesses to be able to come to Flagstaff, which has historically not been easy, so that we can start to stimulate economic development, start to bring good jobs and good companies so that we can continue to grow the business sector here in Flagstaff. So we are doing what we feel is helping the community be healthy, and being healthy isn't just us taking care of you when you're sick. There's more to a healthy, thriving community than just us having a hospital. That doesn't mean we're losing our focus on taking care of you from a healthcare perspective, because that is our focus. So this zoning effort, yes, is taking our focus to get through. Yeah. But when it's done, our intention is not to be the builders of hotels and the builders of houses and the builders of office buildings.
You're going to partner up with
We're going to partner up with that. Our money, our capital is going towards serving the community needs for healthcare.
Okay, Steve, I got to take a quick break. Let's come back, though, and hit on that, hit on what the new facility entails, what kind of services are going to be there. I want to touch on all that. All right, we're talking with Steve Eiss. He is the Vice President of Construction and Real Estate Development for Northern Arizona Healthcare, talking about, it's Prop 480. I don't even know if I mentioned that. Prop 480 in Flagstaff, but it's not just a Flagstaff issue. This is a regional hospital, as you talked about, serving up to 800,000 people from all over the place.
Correct.
Hospital's been around for a long time. It's in north of downtown Flagstaff. And they want to build a brand new facility just south of Flagstaff. I've seen the price tag on this. People have projected. I've seen $1 billion thrown around, $800 million, $1 billion. Is that just for the hospital? Is that number correct, first of all? And Steve, is that just for the hospital in the initial, phase one?
Yeah. So our current budget sits at $865 million.
Wow.
It is for the hospital, the connected ambulatory care center, which is a large medical office building, outpatient doctor's office, the parking garage, and the development of 22 acres of land for a wellness retreat, which is just open space with connections to the existing foots trails, and what we think is kind of a great piece of property for our staff.
Okay, you're private money. I mean, you guys
Correct.
have been, and again, this is getting into more of your business plan, but I guess people are also concerned that it's a big price tag, and they want to make sure that we don't have a regional hospital that goes like bankrupt.
Yeah.
So that comes up.
We want to make sure we have a regional hospital that doesn't go bankrupt also.
Yeah. Have you been squirreling away the money? Is this a finance deal, or is this what is this?
Yeah, so it's half and half. So
Okay.
yes, we do have approximately half the money cash on hand, and it is something that we have been saving for, just like other large healthcare systems would be doing the same thing, because we know we have to respond to the ever-changing needs of populations, and more importantly, the ever-changing needs of healthcare as a business. Right, Healthcare has evolved immensely from 1950 to 2023. Right, and as
I thought you were going to go back to bloodletting.
Yeah, we could, right? But I mean, it's an ever evolving business. The technologies are ever evolving.
Sure.
The regulations around it are ever evolving.
Well, and thank God. I mean,
yeah, right? And so we knew at some point we were going to need to respond, right? At some point something was going to have to be done. And so did we always know that it was going to be a new campus? No, right? Yeah. I mean, there's true reports, from stories from even 4 or 5 years ago about, previous administrations who said we think we're going to build more expansion on campus. And what that really turned into was a very kind of detailed study done with architects to really look at what could really be done on campus. And that's what really derived this decision to try and find property to build something new on, because we knew that there was no long-term plan that actually worked when we really dug into the details of it. And I think there's some folks who think this came out of left field, and that's just really not the case. This is something that's been being studied since the year 2019 that our board initially approved 3.5 years ago, approved
it's a
the
long
company
process
to move forward with.
Yeah.
So
So what's in the new facility? I mean, just give us a 30,000 foot view versus what you're dealing with now.
Yeah, so I would say space and efficiency, which I know don't sound super interesting, but they're huge in the healthcare world. We are extremely undersized for a hospital right now. So a modern healthcare facility being opened right now in America averages somewhere in the 2,400 to 2,500 square feet per bed. So, right,
oh, wow.
right,
Okay.
so a lot of people, when they think about
like
a
a house
hospital,
size.
when they think about a hospital, they think about the physical bed, and we get a lot of questions about how many beds are we adding, how much capacity are we adding, and the reality is it's not just beds. It's everything that complements beds is more where we're struggling. We'll get to how we're struggling on the bed capacity side here in a second, but an actual patient room in a new facility, not in our facility, about 250 square feet. I'm rounding numbers here to make the math easy, right? So for every room, that room is 10% of the overall square footage necessary to support that room. And all that other space that I talk about when I say support, that's surgery, that's the emergency department, it's supply chain, it's food services, it's all of the ancillary support space that makes a hospital run that isn't just a patient's room. The existing Flagstaff Medical Center is 1,600 square feet per bed. So we are 900 square feet per bed too small. So even when we think, even if remodeling was something that could be done, something that was palatable or made sense, we could not, even if we rebuilt it to today's standards, you couldn't fit the amount of rooms and everything you need in a modern facility, even within the walls of our hospital. Okay. It would get so much larger, and that's why our new facility is planned to be so much larger. The other thing that the campus doesn't have is, even if we did that remodel, there's nowhere to go in the future, right? And we know that population is going to continue to increase. And so what we have planned at our new facility is something that is strategically designed to continue to grow in increments with the region.
So you're saying you have the land set aside for future growth, future buildings,
we do. And even internal, right? It's some little things, right? But if you're going to add, 24 or 48 patient rooms, well, that's going to drive a certain percentage of surgical volume with it, and you need to be able to grow your ORs also. So right now we couldn't grow our ORs. We can't grow our ED. We can't grow imaging. It's landlocked. So we haven't been able to keep up with all of these back of house things. And then some of our spaces that even if we have the right quantity of them, they aren't the right size, right? So some of our procedural rooms are too small. Some of our surgery rooms are too small. There's new cutting edge technologies that we'd like to use, robotics and things like that don't fit in our rooms, so we don't have the capacity to use them. And then I think on the inpatient bedside, we still have double occupancy rooms, which I know a lot of folks in Flagstaff, if that's all they've seen, might think that's normal in this day and age, but it's not. You not only do you rarely see double occupancy rooms in hospitals anymore, double occupancy meaning you have a roommate, right? So 66 of our rooms are double occupancy, but they're not even code legal to build in a new hospital. So if you are to build a new hospital, you're not even allowed to build them anymore, even if you wanted to.
Okay. So on the room side, I've heard people say, "Oh, you're not adding more beds."
We are.
Okay. So the beds increase.
Yeah, the beds increase. I think what you might hear is, we're adding 36 beds day one. And the narrative I've heard is, why would they spend $865 million to add 36 beds?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's all the other stuff you're talking
we're,
about.
We're, we're not. Yeah. Right. So what we're adding is everything that we need to sustain and support the region for the next 50 years. And yes, day one, there's a 36 bed increase, which is actually a fairly large increase from a percentage perspective. But even within the footprint of the day one hospital, we have the capacity to add another 44 beds on top of that within 12 months of knowing that we need that. We have a 24 bed shelled unit and a 20 bed shelled unit. So you put that all together, and now we have an 80 bed increase. And so just to put that in perspective for folks who are outside of Flagstaff and the rest of the region, an 80 bed increase is the entire Verde Valley Medical Center in Cottonwood. That's how big 80 bed increase is. So that's a substantial increase. And now we'll be able to have that increase, and we'll also be able to provide care in a more modern facility in private rooms with access to larger, more advanced medical equipment, surgical suites, endoscopy procedure space, et cetera.
Okay, let's do this. I got to take a quick break. I want to come back with Steve and talk more about some of the traffic issues that people have brought up, some of the things specific to his zoning question and his zoning redo. So we'll hit on all of that. And if you got any questions, comments, talk with Jeff at iCloud.com. All right, I've got Steve Eiss here. He's with Northern Arizona Healthcare. He's the Vice President of Construction and Real Estate Development for the hospital. I'm limited on time right now, but what we're going to do is go into a podcast extra here and hit on some of the other concerns people have and get you to give me more details about the new hospital and this and that. So people can get that by going to talkwithjeff.com. We'll have the podcast, we'll have the video on Rumble, video on YouTube as well. And then any of your podcast providers, just look up Orvits, Oravits, and you can continue on with us once we get this posted. But before we check out here for the hour, Steve, you're like page, you're number 20 on the ballot question.
Yeah.
Which I guess is that a bit concerning about people's everybody's getting bombarded with so much information.
Yeah.
Has it been hard to reach people on this issue in an off election year?
Yeah, it has been. I mean, I think knowing that it is an off election year, knowing that it's a mail-in ballot only, so that's a good piece of information for the listeners.
There's no poll.
There's no poll. There is no going to the polls on election day. This is mail-in only. If you are a registered City of Flagstaff voter, you will be getting a ballot in the mail starting the week of October 10th. And if you want a new modern facility for Flagstaff and Northern Arizona, then it's a yes on Prop 480. So yes, there's some concern. I think, from a communication perspective, what we've been trying to do, especially over these last couple of months, is really just educate the citizens of Flagstaff specifically, right? We are obviously interested in the other communities of Northern Arizona because we serve them, but this is a Flagstaff issue from a voting perspective. And so we're just trying to get the real message out there. There is a lot of chatter out there that isn't necessarily either the truth or necessarily full of what I would consider to be detail and context. And I think for over 2 years that we went through this very public zoning process, multiple public meetings, public neighborhood education meetings, et cetera, I think a lot of people weren't paying attention. And that's okay. I mean, that's normal that people
got a lot going on.
Yeah, they got a lot going on. They're sitting at home and they might have anecdotally heard that a new hospital was coming, and a lot of them might even think that's a great idea.
And all of a sudden it's here.
And then, so I still talk to people on a very regular basis that say, I didn't even know that it was going to election. I was wondering why you hadn't started construction, right? So we've been out and about, I think, just trying to push the message that this is an issue, and that if you want this to happen, that action has to be taken. And here are the facts, right? So I would ask everybody that has questions or wants to learn more to go to our Yes on Prop 480 website, to email directly to questions@nahealth.com, which is an email inbox that we monitor and we do answer questions to. We're more than happy to have the discussion about the actual facts, what's in our development agreement, what's in our zoning documents, everything. I mean, the public process that we go through from a zoning perspective is just that. It's very open and transparent. You can go read our development agreement. It's on the City of Flagstaff's website. It states who pays for what we're responsible for, when we're responsible for it. So what we want to just be out and about and be able to answer people's questions and be able to give them the real information and what the real benefits to the community are going to be.
Let me ask you this question about just some general things that have come up. Traffic has been mentioned, Steve. People have been saying, oh, there's going to be a lot more traffic heading south, like on, what is that, Beulah, and then it goes towards Fort Tiedale. There's like that frontage road along that I-17 that right now is just like narrow.
Yes.
And if you have a bike or something, there's no shoulder.
Right.
Are you fixing that,
We are.
or is this okay? Talk about that.
Yeah. So part of our zoning approval in our development agreement is that NAH is financially responsible for widening Beulah. So Beulah is that frontage road off the 17, and we are responsible for widening Beulah, basically from Lake Mary Road all the way down to J.W. Powell, and I won't get into all the details how the interchange works at the roundabouts,
yeah.
But yes, so all of that road infrastructure, which is currently valued at about $45 million, which we feel is a huge investment for NAH to be making into the infrastructure of the community, which also not only alleviates the traffic concerns, which admittedly are at the onset being generated by us. But as I said earlier, that area south of town or in the south part of town is slated for development, and not just our property to the west of us. There's a lot of property that's going to be developed off the new J.W. Powell corridor. So there is quite a bit of future development planned for the south part of Flagstaff. And for us to be willing to make a $45 million investment into the infrastructure, I think speaks to how committed we are to being able to get this hospital.
Okay, bottom line, that gets widened and better than it is now, obviously, to handle traffic. Traffic's been, I saw some people saying, oh, there's going to be 50,000 cars or 50,000. And I did have a little problem reconciling that. Oh, we're going to have all this traffic there, but I think we already have traffic going to the hospital. So is it a wash? I don't know. Or is it because you're growing, there's going to be more traffic?
Yeah. So for phase one, which is what Prop 480 is, I hesitate to call it a wash because yes, we're going to grow, but we were going to grow. People want us to remodel in place to accommodate the population growth, which, as I said earlier, isn't really possible. But so that growth and demand is going to grow one way or the other. I think if you look at it from a location perspective, and if you step outside of just Flagstaff, and you think about the regional nature of where our patient population comes from, right? So 61% of our patient population comes from outside of Flagstaff. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the traffic data in front of me.
Sure.
We spent 2 years with City of Flagstaff's traffic department poring over traffic data, hundreds of pages of traffic data. But the majority of that population that comes to us from outside of Flagstaff comes to us off the 40 and off the 17, and is now going to be able to get off the 40 or the 17 in a more appropriate location and have access right to our new campus instead of having to fight their way downtown and cut through the city.
Okay. What happens to if this goes through the existing facility? I mean, this is going to take years for you to build the new one, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Well, let's start with that.
Yep.
What's the target? If this was passed in November,
yeah.
When are people going to the new hospital?
Yeah, summerish of 2028.
Okay.
So
we're 4-year process.
Yeah, it's a February, March groundbreaking. If it's yes on 480 in November, it's about 48 months of construction.
Wow. Okay.
And then when construction's over in a hospital, that doesn't mean we're ready to open. We have a lot of work to do post-construction.
Sure.
Like medical device installation, IT network installation, furniture, training our staff how to work in that new facility. So we haven't mapped all that out. That's work we'll do during the construction process.
But it's going to be years. It's going to be 4 or 5 years.
4.5 years probably from when we start to when we're operational.
What happens to the old facility? That's a big question. A lot of people.
It's a big question and a fair question and a very important question. And so our answer is we don't have a definitive answer. And I say that to be as transparent as I possibly can be to the community, trying to understand and dictate exactly what a redevelopment of that scale is going to be or needs to be 6-7 years from now, which is when we.
How many acres is that?
About, I think it's 66.
Okay, so that's a sizable chunk
it's a 660,000 square foot building. I mean, it's a very large.
Am I safe to assume that at some point you're going to sell it?
We're gonna redevelop it, whether that's through sale or whether that's through lease. And again, when I say we're going to redevelop it, NH doesn't want to be in the real estate redevelopment business. We're going to find a partner to redevelop it. What we have committed to is that we can help steer what the redevelopment is to make sure it's something that is A, community facing, and B, is something that we know is going to help the community prosper. And so in our development agreement, it states that kind of immediately after formal approval, we need to start a public-facing redevelopment advisory committee, which we are ready to do. We have already contracted an urban management company called Puma. They're actually out of Colorado, but they were hired by the city of Flagstaff right before COVID to look at what downtown master planning could look like in the future. So we thought hiring them would be a great dovetail into it, since our location is just north of downtown. And that's going to be us kind of reaching out to the community, gathering feedback on what they want, and then taking that and understanding, okay, now that we understand what the community's vision might be, can we now make that happen? And if not, can we explain why, and trying to go find partners for that redevelopment process. But our intention is 100% to redevelop
that. Okay. And that's
process.
A long.
And I think I'll just add to that, Jeff, that, we're in the business of being in Flagstaff, right? So when people say to me that, well, we have no guarantee you're going to redevelop it, or we have no guarantee that you're going to develop it into something that makes sense for the community, I think my answer is we are part of this community. The health of our business is tied to the health of Flagstaff, and we would be doing ourselves and the community a disservice.
Well, something's going to happen to the bill. I mean, you're not going to leave 60 acres vacant for the rest of time. I mean, that's not a small sum of money sitting there.
Agreed, right? And it's maybe a little bit of a taboo topic, but I mean, just from a business perspective, we can't leave a piece of real estate like that behind.
Not in Flagstaff. I mean, if there's parts of the country, I guess, where it's like, okay, there's abandoned areas, but I don't see that much in most of northern Arizona. Okay, Steve, one more thing that's come up, and there's huge problems with labor, with staffing. And I've heard some of the ads that you guys have been running and talking about facilities and this and that. I got two directions here. First of all, staffing levels, because you're going to have a bigger facility. Are you concerned? And I just read an article that we have like 2,000 shortage of 2,000 doctors projected in Arizona. That's just doctors. It's not on the nursing side or anything like that by like 2030. Have you guys looked at that? I mean, how are you going to address that gap?
Yeah. So that issu's real.
Yeah.
It's not a Flagstaff thing.
Sure.
It's not everywhere. An NAH thing.
It's not just your industry.
It's not an Arizona thing. It is a problem across America. And I think we see a lot of data that gets put out that was specifically during COVID, where we, along with every other major healthcare system across the country, struggled with what we call core staff, right? The business of traveling staff became a thing. It was a way for people to make a lot of money. We suffered through that, not only from a staffing perspective, but also from a financial perspective, just like most other healthcare systems across the country. But we have actually fairly quickly started to bounce back from that. Our current retention rates are actually above the national average, which we're really proud of, especially for a location like Flagstaff, which at a cost of living isn't sometimes the easiest thing to do. I think a few things as we look at the new facility. So yes, we're going to grow. And I'm not going to say that we'll never need more staff than we have now in the future.
Sure.
But part of our staffing challenges is some of our staffing ratios. And it's because our building is very efficiently designed. It's very inefficiently laid out. It's harder to do most things in that building than it needs to be. So we do think we will start to see some staffing efficiencies by having a much more organized building that is designed for our business instead of us having to design our business around the building. We've designed a building that is around our business.
Okay.
I do also, and we also think that having a new facility will help us with recruitment and retention, right? People want to work in a nicer, newer place. That's reality. It's why you see universities put money into buildings to try and recruit students. It's the same thing for us, especially on the physician side of things. When you have a physician coming right out of school who might have studied and trained on a certain piece of equipment, and then they come visit us and we tell them, oh, we don't have that and we can never have that because it won't fit here.
Yeah. Okay. What happens if this Prop 480, Steve, doesn't pass? And let me go back to what I was saying just a couple minutes ago. I've heard some of your ads, especially on maternity and things like that, but there's been, in my opinion, somewhat of a, we've got deficiencies here we're trying to deal with, and it almost paints a picture of we don't have everything we need here and things aren't going as rosy as we'd like as far as, I don't know, service or available, rooms, technology, whatever, just the whole gamut of things. It's almost painting a picture of we got real problems and we need a new facility. Yeah. Are you concerned that if this fails, that kind of trails and echoes that people are like, well, wait a second, I got to go to the hospital now. Should I go to Phoenix instead? Because they were saying they're having such problems.
Yeah, I think so. Two things. One, people are going to Phoenix right now.
Sure.
Right. We had almost 6,000 people last year go to Phoenix just because we couldn't accommodate them from a capacity perspective. And we don't want that. We want them staying here. But let me be clear. We don't have quality concerns. And as a matter of fact, just to kind of articulate that, we get graded by Leapfrog, which is a national clinical quality group that does hospitals all over the country. They scored the quality of care for 65 hospitals in Arizona. Only 5 of them were grade A hospitals. Both FMC and VVMC were 2 of those 5 hospitals that were grade A hospitals. And we were the only healthcare system in the entire state to have 2 on that list.
2, okay. All right. That's the top rating.
So yeah, I please don't take it as any diminishment of what our staff does from a quality of care perspective, because it's amazing what they do to take care of our patients on a daily basis. What we're saying is we want it to be better than that. We want it to be easier for our staff and our patients. We want it to be more dignified than it is right now for our patients who have to maybe share a room with a roommate and overhear their conversations with their doctors, or be pushed in a gown through a public hallway because there isn't a private hallway just for patients. So what we're saying is we can do more, we can do better, and we need to grow that same level of care. There needs to be more. The population growth isn't going to change, right? And I think I don't want to look at this as a 2023 issue. I want to look at this as a 2073 issue. Yeah. Right? I was just looking at demographic data just today. From 1986 to now, Flagstaff has more than doubled in population. I mean, do I know if it's going to double over again? I don't know exactly.
The whole region is growing so much.
It's growing, yeah. And at some point we have to be willing to accept it. And we have to be willing to accommodate it, and we have to say that we're willing to do it in an intelligent fashion. And I think the City of Flagstaff staff, mayor and council, who spent over 2 years working on this with us, did their due diligence to make sure it was done in an intelligent fashion for the community.
All right, Steve, best wishes to you on this. Any final thoughts you want to get out there? People are going to be getting their ballots in Flagstaff.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from people all over the place because, like you said, this is a regional issue. But just kind of final thoughts on this one, because it's pretty much go time.
Yeah, I'd say just 2 things I'll leave with. 1, vote yes on Prop 480. 2, please don't believe everything you hear anecdotally. And if you have questions or concerns or anything, this is an important decision. It's an important community issue. please reach out to us, because we're more than willing to talk to whoever would like to talk to us so that we can get our information out there.
Okay. And remember, this is an all mail-in ballot for people in Flagstaff. So be on the lookout for that and your 50-page booklet as well. Steve, hey, best wishes to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video. Thank you to everyone listening on the podcast as well. Do me a favor right now. Please subscribe. I appreciate everybody that's doing it. Subscribe, and share with your friends. If you've already done that, leave a comment. That helps us out a lot, and we'll see you back here real soon.